Hi, this is Jonathan, one of the developers behind the JASP project. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate JASP, I'll show you how it works, and show you the general JASP paradigm. Then after that, I'll show you some of the new features that have arrived in this 0.7.5. Anyhow, let's begin. So this is JASP. Let me first of all bring up a dataset. So JASP includes a number of nice examples. So let's start with a nice correlation dataset. As you can see, the data is visualized in this left-hand panel in a sort of spreadsheet form. And the fact that each of these variables is a continuous variable is denoted by the small ruler. But of course, they could also be ordinal and nominal. And I could change it here if I wanted to. Okay, so we have a bunch of different analyses available along the top here. But let's start with descriptives. So I bring this up and then I just pick my variables of interest and just send them from the left over to the right, like this. And you can see that as I'm making changes, it's immediately reflected in the results. If I decide that I'm no longer interested in agreeableness, then I can remove it like that. Similarly, if I decide I'm interested in some plots, then I can have some plots, or not. If I want some additional statistics, then I can just check those as well. And when I'm done, I can click OK. And here's my data back again. Now let's say I want to do a correlation matrix. Again, we just bring the variables from the left over to the right, like so, and we get an R value and a P value for each. Maybe we want to flag significant correlations, and maybe we don't want to report significance. And so we end up with a little correlation table like that. And if we're happy with this, what we can do is we can click here and click copy, and that copies it to the clipboard. This now allows us to bring up Word, and we can just paste our table in like that. And now we've got an APA formatted table ready to go. Okay, and then we can click OK. Now, let's say that we were interested in knowing exactly what options we used to create this analysis here, these descriptives. Maybe we've forgotten, or maybe this analysis was performed by someone else, maybe our colleague. What we can do is we can simply click on it, and up comes the options that we used to generate this. And we can continue to make changes to it if we like. So you can think about this from a kind of peer review perspective, that anyone can come along and examine an analysis and all the options that we use to create it. And of course, you can save a JASP file, send it to a colleague, and they can open it up and they can perform, or they can investigate it in just this way as well. So this is a really nice way, an important thing in openness and transparency in analyses. Okay, now you may be noticing that when I do this, the data is obscured by the panel. It is actually there. And so what we can do is we can resize this like this. And if we have a bigger screen, then this actually works really well. It's a bit hard to demonstrate in the video. Okay, what next? Now I might show you a Ttest. So let me bring up this data set, kitchen rolls. I will do, first of all, an independent samples Ttest. I'll drop mean neo in and rotation. And I get a p-value of 0.453. If I want to do some additional statistics, I can do that as well. If I want to do assumption checks, then I can do those too. But the other thing we can do is a Bayesian independent samples Ttest. So I can do exactly the same thing. I can just drag mean neo in, rotation across, and then I can just go through, let's decide I want BF01 instead. Let's say I want to see a prior and posterior plot. Then I can do this as well. Okay, now another thing that we can do, and this is a new feature in 0.7.5, that is we can add notes. So let's say I want to add notes to this analysis. I might go. Now, one thing that can be important in Bayesian analyses is the choice of prior, and we might want to justify our use of prior. Sure, a user may be able to see that we've used a prior of 0.707, but there's not really any opportunity for them to know why we chose that prior. So now we can type, we chose a prior of 0.707 based on our expectations of effect size. And then when we're done, we can enter out of that. And then at the same time, we can come down and we can actually, let's just turn this off briefly, and we can add our conclusion. We conclude that clockwise movements do not, oh no, even better. We find moderately strong evidence against the hypothesis. Blah, 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 blah. And so this allows us to bring, so what we've done here is JASP really has brought four things together. It's brought the data, it's brought the analysis, it's brought the options for the analysis, and it's brought the rationale together. So it's brought all four of these things together into the one place. And I think this is really important, especially with the current emphasis on openness and transparency in science. Now let's say we want to do a prior and posterior plot, like so. Now another feature that has landed in the 0.7.5 is just the ability to collapse these sorts of sections. So sometimes when you're wading through, there can be a lot of plots and it might be just a little bit too much. And it can sometimes be handy just to collapse things. And of course, you can just expand them out again later as well. Okay, so this is, some of the new features in the 0.7.5. Okay, now another thing that's arrived in 0.7.5 is support for previewing files in the OSF. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of the OSF, it's like a large Dropbox for scientific data and analyses. And so what I can do is I can upload my .jasp files to the OSF. So what I've done is I've uploaded one to my Fred project. And I can scroll down and I can see kitchen rolls.jasp. And now, in the OSF, in the web browser, without actually having JASP installed, anyone can now come along and view the plots, view my analyses, and everything like that. And of course, if they want to download the file, then they can download the file as well. So this is nice. This is integration with the OSF, and it was supported by a incubator grant from the OSF. Okay, so that's kind of, I think that's most of the new features in this release. We have also added a binomial test into this release, and I think log linear regression is coming along as well. And so these have just arrived in this release as well. And of course, we still have all of the other analyses, ANOVA, repeated measures, ANOVA, ANCOVA, etc. that we've been supporting all along. So yeah, so that's JASP 0.7.5. To kind of wrap up, I just want to end on a slightly more personal note. I'm just about to step down from my role as the lead developer of the JASP project. I'm going to be handing, both myself and Damien Dropman will be stepping down, and we'll be handing over development to, most of the development to Bruno Boutin and France. So you'll probably hear from them in the coming months. But it's been a really great project to work on, and thank you to everyone who uses JASP.